Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be going through some of my prediction videos from last week and we're going to be talking about some of the games. This will be a quick summary. The prediction video itself goes through a lot of what I was expecting. Unfortunately there are some games I haven't watched due to time zone differences and due to other time constraints, including getting stuff out for the R6 video. So there will be some games I can't comment on at all. And we'll also be talking about the tally and percentage of how I've been doing so far, and as well as just what I feel about the games and how I felt going through these predictions. So we'll start with the LEC, which is how I started the prediction video itself. Um, we'll start with me telling everyone, proving everyone wrong. I predicted BDS to beat G2. BDS beat G2. I saw no one else predict BDS to win, so guess I'm the only one who's right. I might be wrong though. So I might have predicted BDS to beat G2. If you did, comment down below. Um, so why did I expect that? It's just G2 being G2. Um, well, let's talk about the ones I got wrong. Mad versus Fnatic. So I commented here on the reasoning. I banked on the wrong Mad. It's not entirely wrong. Mad, Mad, I said were like 50-50 as to whether they're a good team or a bad team. I expected them to be a bad team in this game. Um, they weren't. They were against Excel though. Fortunately, I predicted Excel to win that game as well. Although their draw coordination was also pretty whack. And I think did they pick Lee Sin, or did I just am I just talking raw? Um, I because if they pick Lee Sin, then it makes sense that I said plus the Lee Sin pick. Yeah, they picked Lee Sin. I hate Lee Sin. Lee Sin is one of my least favorite champions in the game. Partially, mostly because of the way people justify picking Lee Sin. Like, people talk about the kick being all internally good. Yes, if you're a goated player, but no one is that goated. Like, not even owner is that goated, and he is the best Lee Sin in pro play. Um, so I think Mad kind of showed their true colors in both games. Like, they're very inconsistent. Um, Fnatic also look pretty bad, which I guess helps Mad Lions win. Like, they've had a very bad weekend. Like, against BDS, they played with the same traditional areas of Europe where their what's it called is really bad. What's it called? Macro is horrific. They take really silly fights that they shouldn't win. They win because their other team made more errors than they did. It's not been fun for Fnatic this weekend, to put it simply. SK versus Misfits. I massively overestimated Misfits' issues. I thought they looked shit in the previous week. Turns out I was wrong. Misfits are actually pretty decent still. Yeah, they play pretty well. SK there's still a gap between them and SK, and quite a significant one. So I guess that's good. Vitality beating G2. That was me being a G2 doubter. G2 still looks very questionable though. I can't lie. Um, but they were bailed out by Vitality's continuing issues with jungle and coordination. I still think, as you can see in my Gant episode, the series where I still refuse to spell going against the narrative correctly is a acronym, and I always will. Um, I talked about how Vitality are it's not Haru's fault, it's like a team coordination. Haru's still coordinating quite well individually with the rest of his team, which is nice to see because I think I really want to see Haru succeed because he looked really good on X7 and it'd be a waste of his talent if he came to Vitality and just did shit. He's still getting flamed by people like Dom. I think it's quite unfair because he was never like of the mechanical ability to play in the LEC. Like he wasn't even the best mechanical jungler in the NLC, which is arguably one of the weakest major regions in the ERLs. So yeah. One of the big turning points in this game was when Kazi got caught at third Drake. He was completely isolated and on his own. And as Lady Carrier, that's just a cardinal sin, and that arguably was part of the reason why Vitality lost that game. So we'll go on to LCS. Um, Dignitas C9, you can see up here, I predicted them as equal as a bit of a cop out. I sort of said Dig would win if Berserker didn't play, and C9 would win if Berserker did play. Berserker played, C9 won, so exactly as I predicted. 100 Thieves Golden Guardians was frustrating as anything. Neither team knows how to play. As you can see, one of my main points for predicting 100 Thieves 2 win was that they don't know how to play. Um, the confusing thing about this game was why on earth Stixay choose to pick Callista into FBI's Lucian. Like, FBI is categorically a better AD carry. He's a better carry AD carry. It was a bit of a weird choice. Neither team looked like they knew how to play the macro game very well. It was very weird. Was not a fan of this game. TSMTL was just Team Liquid trying to take ego fights all the time. If I say ego peak, it's because I've been watching a lot of Siege to try and get back into that community, so I do sometimes say ego peak when I mean ego fights. Um, Team Liquid basically trying to be 2019 G2 without the skill, the same way that G2 is currently, honestly. Um, yeah, bit weird. Fly CLG. So when I talked about this game, I talked about both teams being equal, and I said that the main difference between the two was that I liked CLG more because they've got rookie players. They got Luger, Poo. Well, Poom's not really a rookie, but I like him as a rookie. Dokler. Like they've got some nice players. Um, but both made some silly errors. CLG's decision making kind of sucked. They took a Herald when they should have been punished for it, but then FlyQuest didn't bother punishing them for it, so it was a good decision in the end, I guess. Um, CLJ gifted Soul, which meant they couldn't finish the game that they should have won. It was a bit of a weird game as a whole. Um, yeah, as you can see, I missed the GG TSM game. I'm going to presume it was an owner diff game because I'd much rather have my organization owned by Golden State Warriors than Reginald. Um, so we're going to assume that's the reason. Team Liquid FlyQuest. FlyQuest did really well early because Team Liquid was still playing like apes as they did against TSM, but eventually TL like became a bit better. Well, I say became a bit. It wasn't really TL becoming a bit better. FlyQuest kind of screwed over a Baron turn, and that lost them the game. Cloud9 100 Thieves. Literally, I say imagine if 100 Thieves knew how to play the game. If 100 Thieves knew how to play the game, like if they could scale, they didn't sin, they knew what macro was, they would probably be one of the better teams in NA, probably one of the better teams in the world. But as it stands, they're never going to be above like top 5 in NA. Like you can't consider them top 3, definitely. Maybe consider them top 4, but like they're never going to be beyond it. They're like the tier break is always going to be 5 with them. They're not going to be like top 2 um, until they do that. It's quite funny. The cast blamed communication during the game, which I thought was really quite funny because you're talking about a team which has had one roster change between finishing fourth with Ryoma, winning LCS, finishing second in LCS, and now. Um, and bear in mind, the best results were with Abadage instead of Ryoma. So, like, it makes no sense to blame communication. Like, you can talk about them not being in sync and you can talk about them not seeing eye to eye, but that isn't communication. Communication is such a cop out as an issue because, like, as you can see with IG and the best players, like IG, when I'm saying IG, I mean when they peaked, where they had the Shy who couldn't speak a word on Mandarin and had to have Rookie translate mid game for him, and they were using pings to communicate with him a lot of the time. They won Worlds. Like, it's not communication, it's an issue with being in sync in terms of the way they think about the game. It's like a mental communication, maybe. Like if you're gonna try and stretch this point, but there's no real argument to be made. It's more that C9 were better and 100 Thieves don't understand macro and they don't know how to fight 2v2s. They don't know how to do level 2 engages. They don't know how to count minions, that sort of thing. It's not so much they can't communicate because that's bullshit. CLG um, this was a really infuriating game because you could see that EG were like better as a team. Um, EG made a lot more silly decision. They played like a solo queue sort of style and FF neutral objectives occasionally. A key like idea of them being sort of solo queue in their mentality was in the level 1 engagement where Vulcan goes in to try and capitalize on a overstep by one of the CLG players, and if the rest of the team follows up, they win that level 1 every single time, probably. I'm not going to be too like they definitely win it every single time because they might not. But no one else follows him in, and it just makes him feed and it makes him look like a bad player. But in reality, it's just no one choosing to follow him up. That sort of will do with LCS. The only thing else to say is like all the other games sort of went as you'd predict, or they went as I predicted in terms of how I talked about the game as well. So let's move on to LJL. Um, so let's talk about the errors. I predicted DFM to beat Sengoku. I heard the casters pronounce it Sengok, or Sengok, something along those lines. I am learning Japanese, as you can see with this beautiful book, but that's more to read than write, speak. It's probably going to be 5, 6 years before I speak properly. Um, we'll have to see. But yeah, it was a bit of a weird game. DFM were taking lots of ego fights. They chose bad lane matchups that didn't give them good prio. They were continuously getting caught and like roaming through jungles as if they were the only team in the game, and they were dry scrimming. It was really weird. I thought a quote that sort of summed up the game was one that they aimed at Sengoku's AD carry, which was Honey wa giri giri inting. So Honey was the AD carry of Sengoku, and he almost got caught and had to like flash under his own tower and to survive. And Giri Giri inting is like he's almost inting. He's playing so badly, but he's almost inting. And that sort of summed up DFM as like a whole. Like every decision they made was almost considerable, almost possible to consider it inting. Then we'll talk about the other Sengoku game. So Sengoku CGA, sorry, or are they CGL? Are they Crest Gaming List or Crest Gaming Act? Crest Gaming have, for context, Crest Gaming have like loads of different like random things they add after their name. So like, let's try. Yeah, see, Crest Gaming List R6. Um, just Crest Gaming, and like they just have random names all the time. Um, but so Crest Gaming Act, I predicted Crest Gaming Act to have improved a lot. They have improved a lot still. Like you can see down here, they beat V3, they beat Burning Core. Like they'd have beaten V3 anyway. V3 are arguably the weakest team in the league by quite some way. Although they did look good, fairly decent against DFM and Axes, which is quite funny. Um, but they're on like an upwards trend because they beat Burning Core, who they lost 2-1 in the matchup in spring. Um, so they're definitely doing well, but I overestimated that growth. SG was sorry was second in the league last split, so I sort of underestimated them coming into this. Um, and as you can see, I decided they were greater than my belief in Marble, even as much as I love Marble. Um, yeah, it was weird that I predicted them that way. There's still like a definite team gap. Uh, Rascal Jester versus Axes, I couldn't watch, and Burning Core versus Axes, I couldn't watch. But Rascal Jester going from like third in the league to losing to one of the weakest teams and um, one of the I think they're the fourth strongest team in spring, but like they're not that good as a whole. So it's quite weird that they won. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Rascal Jester. I want to see Rascal Jester be good because when they can compete with DFM, they look really, really strong. Um, and this is a pretty decent roster as a whole. Like they have had issues with Hachamecha it should be the correct pronunciation, I guess, and Ino, but I want to see this team do well. So yeah, I'm also going to be keeping a tally of how I've done. You can see that I've also, in terms of my predictions, as a whole, I want to get above 50 in every region as a 50% accuracy. Um, which could be fairly difficult because I will start bringing in some of these other regions that I don't watch as much. These regions that I don't watch quite as much, which are particularly these regions, I will be having on the other side of the table so that it's quite obvious that I don't watch them as much, and I won't be making predictions for them every week. I'll be making predictions when I feel like it. I will definitely make predictions for every playoffs game, though. That is my aim, is to make predictions for every playoffs. Um, how that'll work, I'm not quite sure yet. Whether I will like predict games based purely on, so like, say for example, we know let's go with the Japanese league. We know, for example, who's won the lower bracket semi-final, but we don't. Upper bracket final hasn't happened yet. Normally, the upper bracket final gets played first. But let's say that's happened. I'd have to predict who would lose this game and who would win this game first, or maybe I'd ignore this game because I couldn't predict it at the time because I didn't know who was playing. Don't know what I'm going to do. I will probably do the prior because it makes it more interesting. Um, that's the only reason. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you like the face cam, please feel free to tell me. It's a cheap face cam, so I'm sorry if it bugged you out with the auto focusing. I can't focus it myself. It is literally a cheap. I can't even show you. I was about to go show you it. How would I record it on itself? Anyway, it's a cheap face cam. Sorry if it bugged you. It's not really much I can do about it. Uh, anyway, I'll see you.